Tom Thibodeau was fired.
Yes,
like
I completely meant to bring that up.
Expected, or at least I expected, and kind of wanted them to do. I felt like it was the right move to make. It made sense to me because I felt, and this has already been echoed by people online, media people specifically, but I felt as well, I agree with them, that it really didn't matter how this postseason went. They kind of had in their mind that they were going to fire Tom Thibodeau.
Yep.
I think more than likely they expected, looking at the postseason, we were going to play Boston in the second round. Boston was going to work us. We would be 2-16 against the top 4 teams in the conference. That's not good enough. We have to fire Thibodeau. You look at historic for Tom, it has been capped at the conference finals at best, and way too often has gotten to the postseason. The team wears down. A key guy gets hurt, and the season's over. And they never felt like they were a team that should compete for a title. I think this is one of the first years outside of the Chicago Bulls that were the number 1 overall seed where a Thibodeau team felt like a title contender going into the season and throughout the season and going into the postseason. And still, they, I think, in-house thought, we're just not going to be able to get this done. And I also felt like they weren't going to be able to change his philosophy. They weren't going to just be able to say...
Can't teach an old dog new tricks. So
yeah, especially a guy who's been coaching this long, has been successful with the way he's been coaching as long as he has. You're not going to just tell him, hey, we got to play more guys off the bench. Like, he's just not going to do that. And so I felt like it was the right move to make. It was really the variable that stuck out from a perspective of, like, what is going to keep us from winning a championship. He hasn't done it yet before. And I think they look at the way the Eastern Conference is going to look next year. They should feel like they are the best team in the East because Tatum is out, Giannis is more than likely gone, and you feel like you can beat the Pacers. So realistically, they were 1 game away from the finals. Like, if they don't choke in game 1, we have a game 7 that was played 2 nights ago. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like this was the move they have to make. I will be very interested to see where they go with the head coaching perspective. There's 2 names out there, Johnny Bryant, Michael Malone. But I thought it was the right move to make.
Sure. I don't hate the move either. I think I was a little more... I think if you asked us Sunday the odds he stays, you probably would have given... Your odds would have been a lot less split than mine would have been. I probably would have said around, 65-35 or something he gets fired. I am also still interested to see what they do with Cat, if he's someone they move based on kind of the narrative we've still seen. But yeah, I don't hate it at all either. It's just another evidence that this is also a player-driven league. Pretty clear that the Knicks players had kind of checked out on him and didn't think he was the guy. And as soon as that happens, the coach has got to go. Even thinking the Suns just hired Cleveland's assistant coach. I don't know his first name. His last name's Ott. Mm-hmm. And it came out like Devin Booker basically was alongside in the search process, and he stamped him as his top guy. And that's part of the reason the Suns hired him. Like, it's such a player-driven league that no matter how good of a coach you are in theory, X's and O's, think even of Michael Malone, right? There was other stuff going on there, but I think kind of the players decided they didn't want him to be the coach anymore, so he gets fired.
Which is crazy because he was like, right now he's been like one of the most like player coaches we've seen in the NBA. He is just, he adores Jokic and Jamal Murray.
It was funny to see him after, when he was on the media, be like, "This is why Shea won the MVP," or "Shea's the MVP," and it was like all season he was like, "Oh no, Jokic is the MVP. Jokic is the MVP." But yeah, I'm not at all surprised they fired him. I've never been the biggest Tom Thibodeau fan. It has been fun to see as the Knicks made their conference finals run, and obviously, the further you go in the playoffs, the more and more casual fans are going to tune in. A lot of casual Knicks fans being like, "How in the world did we fire this guy? Like, this was the wrong move. Like, he just got us to the conference finals," and they don't understand the context, obviously. But tough for Tom Thibodeau. It is not really, actually, because he just got extended, and so he's going to make $30 million without having to do anything.
Coach somewhere else too.
money, where do you think he coaches next?
Um,
Do you think he's off for a year and then gets a job the next cycle,
it
or
feels like at this point in the cycle, he'd have to be off for a year, unless these teams with these young coaches like feel like, oh, well, big name, we can go and actually get him now.
yeah,
Like if you're thinking about Charlotte or Brooklyn,
sure,
um, and even out west, you think of teams like Memphis who just fired Taylor Jenkins. Like those kinds of teams make sense where they're in a spot where they just moved off a coach. Their head coach has been there for a year or two. I feel like there's no way he goes to a big brand. Like there's no way. For one, a lot of the big brands are full.
that's also just not the coach he is, and what we've seen him to prove to be, which
Correct.
is a floor raiser and someone that can kind of get the ship moving in the right direction, but won't ever, get them all the way.
Absolutely. And I think for those kinds of teams, that's actually something they would really desire because
Correct.
they, at the end of the day, like these are businesses, and we think about the salary cap in professional football and professional basketball. Like that's how much money they're allowed to spend, but that doesn't mean they make enough money to spend that money.
Correct.
And that's why you still see teams with a lot of cap space in some cases.
Sure.
So, like, they want to put butts in the seat, which means they want to have a team that's playoff bound. And teams like Charlotte, teams like Brooklyn feel like they could use something like that. Memphis as well. Like, Memphis can fill up that crowd, but the team needs to be good to fill up that crowd.
Yeah.
I think for the Knicks, again, it felt like the right move because from an X's and O's perspective or a basketball perspective, that team doesn't feel like it there's just no reason for it to be a one guy scores 29, one guy gets just above 20, and the other score like 15. It feels like it should be four guys scoring 20 a night.
Yeah. Well, the Mikal Bridges piece just never really panned out. Not that he had a bad season, but for what you expected to get from him, he wasn't there at all.
I never felt like he had the chance to. I
think
like
that's very fair.
Brunson had the ball so much that Mikal Bridges became off the ball, and he essentially just became. I mean, think about not the same, but like think about like Kevin Love or Chris Bosh.
Yeah.
Like he was the third option at that point. At that point, when you're the third option, you just become, all right, be good defensively or rebound and shoot threes.
And I can guarantee that's not what they brought him in to do.
He was not that at Brooklyn. He was a extremely productive scorer. He had, I think he was almost at 26 points a game for Brooklyn, and he is that. Like he showed that flashes in many moments in many fourth quarters this postseason, where like this guy can go score 10 points whenever he wants. So it feels like that the Knicks should play that way, where it is a bunch of guys scoring 20 points a game, because they've all shown that. Like Brunson can score 30 whenever he wants. Cat, if he is aggressive, can score 30 whenever he wants. And Mikal is a bona fide scorer, and I think we've seen from OG in these past 2 years, that guy can score. Sure. Like, he's not just a defender. And the Knicks, I feel like need to play that way going forward because it's going to help them a ton, especially when you get to the postseason. Like for this postseason, when Brunson has played bad, they've typically just not been in a good enough spot.
Correct.
Like in the games Brunson played bad, they need a Cat to just go
off.
nuclear. Now when you have four guys that can score these 20 points,
share the load.
Someone else can become the threat that night. And I think it would be extremely productive for the Knicks going forward if that's the way they play.
Sure.
So for me, I would hire. I think Michael Malone is the pick because if you fired Tom Thibodeau for the reason of he can't get us to the finals and win the finals, Michael Malone has done that, and he's proven that, and he's very smart and intellectual from an offensive perspective. He's a player's coach. He really loves his players. He speaks fondly of his players all the time. So I would hire him. Johnny Bryant's been linked a ton. I don't feel like the first-year coach is the right way to move when I feel like next year and maybe the season after that is the window, and that's it.
I agree completely.
For making the finals for the Knicks. Post that, who knows? Because at that point, these players have to get re-signed. Brunson would be way more expensive.
Sure.
And these guys are, I mean, they're not young like the Thunder by any means. So I think you got to hire a coach that can help you win now. So Michael Malone is the answer for me.
I agree. I'd go Michael Malone. I feel like sometimes we see in the NBA where people recycle previous head coaches kind of over and over again because they're scared to hire an up-and-coming assistant. That's not at all the situation. Michael Malone won a title 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy I wanted the Spurs to hire when it announced Pop wasn't coming back. Now I should have known the Spurs weren't going to do that because the Spurs are such a homegrown organization.
Absolutely.
They're like, we were just always going to promote from within. But it just kind of feels like Michael Malone is going to fall in the Knicks' lap, and he's nowhere near being done ready to coach, in my opinion. He honestly probably is a little pissed off he got fired and is ready to prove that he shouldn't have been fired. So I think he's the perfect guy to hire.